A war escalating on the ground and diplomacy escalating behind the scenes. As Israel expands its military operations and Iran responds with missile attacks, Washington signals that a deal may be within reach. But with the April 6th deadline approaching and the world watching the Strait of Hormuz, uncertainty remains high. Is this a real moment for de-escalation or the beginning of a broader regional conflict? Let's continue our extensive special coverage on Qnews. U.S. President Donald Trump has extended a pause on strikes targeting Iran's energy infrastructure, saying talks with Iran are ongoing and going very well. The pause, initially set for 5 days, has now been extended to April the 6th, following what Trump described as a request from the Iranian government. Despite the diplomatic tone, Trump warned that the United States would become Iran's worst nightmare if a deal is not reached. At the same time, U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff confirmed that Washington has submitted a 15-point peace plan to Tehran. In response, an Iranian official reportedly stressed what he called the country's natural and legal right to control the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, foreign ministers from the Group of Seven are meeting near Paris as European allies push to narrow differences with the United States over the Iran war. The two-day talks, hosted by France, come at a critical moment in the conflict. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is expected to join the talks on the second day, his first trip abroad since the war began in late February. European leaders are warning the conflict is having a catastrophic impact on the global economy, with energy markets under growing pressure. EU officials describe the situation as critical as G7 nations look to push Washington toward a diplomatic off-ramp with Tehran. For more on this, we're joined from Berlin by Nicholas Ferzelli, Director of EU ASEAN Center. A very warm welcome, sir, and it's a pleasure to have you with us in today's coverage on Qnews. Sir, Mr. Ferzelli, President Trump says Iran wants a deal, but they are still firing missiles and leaders are being killed. How can things be going well if the fighting is actually getting worse?
Delighted to join you today from the German capital. It's very complicated. It's murky, as they say in American English. The first casualty of war is truth itself, right? And that proverb is rooted in Greek philosophy. So as soon as the war starts, both parties have an interest to lie and not to tell the truth, right? And so now the American party to the conflict, they say they have a 15 plans, quote unquote, peace plan. The Iranians replied by saying they have a 5 points peace plan. And the Israelis replied by saying that they don't want peace, in essence. So here we have a triangle, a fateful triangle. Even though Israel and America are all allies, we're starting to see on the surface, and perhaps even deeper below the surface, cracks within the American-Israeli alliance because the objectives are not the same. And
okay, sir, sorry to interrupt you in this context. Could you tell me the objective of each country?
Yeah, so on the surface, they're very similar. So on the surface, it's all about nuclear non-proliferation, preventing Iran from developing weapon-grade nuclear weapons, and about ballistic
Does
missiles.
Iran have nuclear weapons, sir?
No, but supposedly it's very close to having it, and it has supposedly a stockpile of secret, mildly enriched uranium. And the second issue is nuclear, is ballistic missiles, right? The vectors to throw potentially nuclear and chemical weapons on your enemy, the missile. These are the two supposedly objectives. The third one is about the Shiite militias controlled by the Iranian government in three countries, Lebanon and Yemen, but more importantly, Iraq. What happened in the previous Gulf War, in the 2003 Gulf War, we have to remember, because history is always being fabricated, but in the previous Gulf War 23 years ago, Israel was allied with Iran against the regime of Saddam Hussein. And Israel helped George W. Bush and Dick Cheney topple Saddam's regime. And they installed in Baghdad a new government, which is still in power today, which is a radical Shiite Khomeinist government. So now the Iraqi government today, thanks to Israel and George Bush, is controlled by Iran. So this is the problem. The proxies, the Iranian proxies in Yemen, Lebanon, and Iraq, the ballistic missiles, nuclear proliferation. But there are deeper objectives that America has, which are more important, but they were never communicated clearly by the White House. It's about the new Cold War against China. It's about the control of the heart of the new Silk Road, connecting Beijing to Dublin. And Iran is at the heart of that new Silk Road. And it's about the untapped, largely untapped, huge uranium, rare earth mineral deposits and additional natural gas resources in northern Iran, around the Caspian Sea. I think America does not want to see Chinese companies put their hands on these strategic resources. And so I think these are the deeper motives that America has in that bigger, more important game than the game that Israel plays. But once again, the war.
Mr. Frizzelli, China is a winner in this war, or is and did, upon what you're saying, Donald Trump achieve his objective when he decided that he's striking Iran, or their attacks on Iran, because he didn't want China to leverage.
Yeah, you could say China is winning, yes and no. So yes and no, because the Chinese believe in that very important philosophy, developed by a Chinese thinker and general called Sun Tzu. And what Sun Tzu says is the best war is the war which you win without firing a shot. And the best war is when you see your enemies kill each other. So this is the Chinese philosophy, if you will. But there's something hurting China. It is the price of oil and gas, because even though China is much more advanced than Europe and America in the field of renewable energy and in the field of nuclear, civilian nuclear power plants, the Chinese are far more advanced. They are thirsty for energy, and they import a sizable part of their natural gas and oil from Iran, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and they are hurting because they can't get enough energy. The same applies to Australia, by the way. Australia is hurting, India is hurting, South Korea is hurting terribly. So all of Asia now is suffering terribly from the consequences of the closure of Hormuz.
And we are joined now by Ahmed Maharem, a political analyst from New York. A very warm welcome to the program. Mr. Maharem, Trump says a deal is close, but Israel is increasing its strikes at this point. Is there a difference between U.S. and Israeli goals and objectives? The question I was asking Mr. Zerli before you were with this.
Well, absolutely. Since the conflict started almost months ago, both America and Israel, I can say, very close. They have the same objective. Couple of good points. None of them have been achieved. But with the escalation of the conflict, I think America found itself in a very miserable situation. And finally, they hope by all means, if the diplomatic negotiation will succeed, that means President Trump, he is ready, welcome to withdraw from this battle, and he can announce by his own way that we already have achieved the victory. So that's from the point of America. Israel has different objectives because Benjamin Netanyahu does not want the war to be ended. That's why he is escaping to the front, and he is conquered South Lebanon. He is gathering 450,000 soldiers to continue the war. In that regard, the differentiation between both of them is coming to be very clear. Sound like possible at any time. Maybe President Trump, he can announce that the war is ended, but Benjamin Netanyahu would like to continue. Can he still doing what he is doing right now without America? I doubt very much. But it is very clear that between both of them, the objectives are quite different.
Mr. Fazeli, how do you read what Mr. Maharim said?
I agree in part. I agree in part with what Dr. Maharim just said. And let's not forget, culture is everything. So culture is more important than military strategy. And so Trump, he's a real estate financier, right? So his upbringing, the way he views the world, is I build expensive condominiums, I raise money, and I sell the expensive real estate to rich, wealthy buyers. So he's a seller, he's a merchant. And inside the higher spheres of the Iranian Khomeini government, allied with very pragmatic bazaris. The bazaris are the rich merchants of Tehran. They're ultra-capitalist, they're cynical, they like to make deals, they like to buy and sell, just like Trump. So because they both have the bazari merchant, if you will, mentality, they can negotiate easily, and they can have that off-ramp, and they can both declare, Trump can say, we have the precise statistics published by Pentagon experts. Yesterday, we destroyed 98% of the Iranian fleet. We destroyed 99% of the Iranian Air Force, and we destroyed 86.2% of Iran's ballistic and nuclear capabilities. It's an amazing victory. Great. I declare that I am the winner. Bye-bye. And the Iranians can say we resisted to the most powerful alliance ever garnered in military history, the alliance of the Lion of Washington and the Lion of Judah. We resisted, we are steadfast, we are geniuses, we won. That can be achieved, that can happen through a middle-of-the-road, bazari merchant negotiation between Washington, D.C. and Tehran. The problem in the equation, there's a third part in the equation, an unknown, which is Israel, which does not want that middle-of-the-road end to the war. And I think Israel is focusing on South Lebanon. I think they would like to conquer 18% to be precise, of the Lebanese territory. You may say,
only the Lebanese territory, sir. I'll leave it there, Mr. Fazeli, and I'll go to Mr. Maharim. And as G7 foreign ministers meet in, Dr. Maharim, as G7 foreign ministers meet in France, what concrete steps can be realistically taken to de-escalate the situation? And of course, the European leaders, we all know, are urging an off-ramp with Iran. What would such an off-ramp actually look like in practice?
Well, I think to a certain extent, a ceasefire, even if it is temporary, a ceasefire will help also maybe reduce the tension. There is a lot of tensions on Iran. If some of them can be reduced for some time, that will be grateful. And I think there's some kind of security guarantee. If those allies can guarantee the certain limit of the security to the Iranian, that will help as well. And I think the idea of freezing the situation will help as well to come out from this conflict, by all means, to help the situation.
Perfect, sir. Mr. Fazili, French Foreign Minister Barrot spoke about major global imbalances caused by this war. If the Strait of Hormuz remains closed after April the 6th, what is the realistic ceiling for oil prices, and can the G7 nations
what is the benchmark? The previous Gulf War, right? When Israel was allied tactically with Iran and George Bush and Tony Blair against Saddam Hussein, right? And back then, France had a very powerful role. And why was France strong in the previous Gulf War in the year 2002, 2003? Because France had a different position. You know, it was different from NATO, different from America. And so France could speak with a strong voice, and its allies in Asia, Africa, Latin America could bring additional strengths to the French position. That's why my friend, Jacques Chirac, President Chirac, played an amazing central role in the previous Gulf War. The world has changed dramatically in the past 20 years, and the French influence, French military, French power, completely collapsed. And the people in power today in Europe, in most European countries, in Berlin, Paris, and London, they are neoconservatives in the mold of Tony Blair, Dick Cheney, and George W. Bush. So their voice cannot be heard because it's not a different voice. It's not the Gaullist voice which France had back then. So what I'm coming at is what Jean-Noël Barrot, the French foreign minister, says today has zero impact. People don't take him seriously because he's not serious. And the relative size, you know, of France, the French economy, the French military, its relative Nisbiyan size has shrunk dramatically. And we're seeing it in the way that the British and the French have sent a few military ships very painfully and slowly to the Eastern Mediterranean, supposedly to defend Cyprus or Lebanon, but the amount, the size of the Anglo-French fleet is ridiculous. In itself, it's telling you what? They are out of the game. They don't matter that much anymore.
Mr. Maharim, how do you read what Mr. Fazali said now?
I think I agree of what he's saying because the situation on the ground asking all the allies to apply different kind of scenarios. So what can be done is better than what we can hope it can be achieved. So to a certain extent, I agree what he said. Let us hope that something better can happen on the ground to help the situation and to achieve some kind of success to all the parties.
Mr. Maharim, with Lebanon now fully pulled into the conflict, is the 15-point plan between the United States and Iran even viable if Hezbollah and other regional actors aren't at the table?
Well, Hezbollah is very important, and the Iranian leaders are concerned about the continuation of Hezbollah because in the history, in all the previous battles, even for the previous one, and for the right now one, Hezbollah is helping Iran from the other side. And there is a kind of belief or strategy between both of them. Iran will never agree on any kind of agreement. Hezbollah cannot be included. So I hope this matter can be, looked by all means when the negotiation will happen at any time.
Mr. Fazili, Israeli media, reported that killing of IRGC Navy Commander Ali Reza Tangsi. How would that affect Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz?
I'm afraid very little, very little. And the Israelis, just like the Iranians, by the way, they like to exaggerate wildly their military prowesses. In reality, it amounts to nothing. And I'll tell you why.
Why do you read they're exaggerating, sir?
Because we're at war. And when you have a war, you have to lie. This is the foundation of war. You know, both sides, their interest is not to tell the truth. Because in a war, information is precious. So misinformation is a weapon you use against the enemies. The Iranians use it against Israel and America, and the Israelis use it against the rest of the world,
But at the end of
including.
the day, sir, you can figure out who is winning this war.
Yeah, but it will take time. What I'm coming at is, killing one or two or 20 Shiite Iranian admirals or vice admirals or captains or whatever is nothing because the navy of Iran is practically destroyed. The strength of Iran is different. It's two things. It's the mines. They can easily drop hundreds of mines in the waters of the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea and the Sea of Oman, completely wreaking havoc on the world economy. But as a secret weapon they haven't used it much. It is the small inflatable Zodiac boats, called dinghy boats in English. And by the way, dinghy is an Indian Iranian word, right? So these small inflatable dinghy boats are manufactured in China and France by a company called Zodiac. And the Iranian government for the past 40 years was one of the biggest customers of Zodiac Corporation. They have thousands of small inflatable dinghy boats. They cost $800 a piece. Add $400 for a small engine, and the engine can run on a small cup of diesel. So even if the Americans and the Israelis destroy all the oil refineries in Iran, they have enough diesel to last 20 years. And they have thousands of Zodiac boats. And using a combination of the dinghy boats and the mines, they can control the Strait of Hormuz forever, for the next 50 years. So this is the problem. And killing 20 Jafari, Mitvali, Persian admirals or vice admirals amounts to nothing. It doesn't advance
Got your
Israel
point,
cause.
sir. Mr. Maharem, the proposed 15-point framework delivered via Pakistan suggests back-channel diplomacy. How significant is this channel in shaping a potential deal?
Well, back channel or secret diplomacy, the 15 points were addressed by America through Pakistan. I think it could be the best way to find a good solution to achieve the target that America can say that we win, and the Iranian can get out of this conflict for a better life. But unfortunately, there is so many points on that 15 points are not in the favor or on the welcome way of Iranian. So negotiation will take some time, but hope at the end of the tunnel, both parties can achieve some kind of positive negotiation.
Mr. Fazeli, United States and Israeli strikes continue inside Iran, while Iranian missiles target Israel. Are we witnessing controlled escalation or the early stages of a wider regional war at this point?
I think, once again, I have absolutely no sympathy for the Iranian regime. I despise the Iranian regime, but we have to look at things in a cold, dispassionate manner. The Iranians are playing defense, right? And they are desperate. So they are put in a corner. And when you put a wild animal in a corner and he's wounded, he will behave very aggressively. So the strength of Iran is the strength of that desperate wild boar or tiger, and he has claws, and he can hit hard across the Persian Gulf, and he can hit hard much beyond, not because of his ballistic missiles, because the pricing mechanism of oil and natural gas is global. This is the weapons the Iranians have today. Even though America today, unlike Europe, unlike China, America is more than self-sufficient. America can export natural gas and oil. The pricing mechanism is determined globally. So American voters, Republican voters in Oklahoma, Pennsylvania are hurting. This will hurt Trump. And this is the weapon the Iranians are wielding. Another weapon is very simple. There is a Trump Xi Jinping, there is an American-China summit in 1 month in Beijing. That summit has already been postponed once by President Trump. He cannot postpone it a second time. And so the window that America has is a 4 weeks window. They need to wrap up that war before flying to Beijing to meet with Xi Jinping. If they don't, they will be in trouble. So I think this is the real deadline. This is the real time horizon which President Trump has.
Okay, Mr. Fazili, pair upon what you're just saying and your narrative. Why didn't the United States and Israel think before attacking Iran?
It's a good question. So I think the strategically, on a long term, right, on a long-term strategic high level, hitting Iran to hurt China, to control uranium, natural gas, and to control rare earth minerals resources, and to destroy the new Silk Road. That can be understood. It makes sense from a new Cold War perspective. But implementation, the short-term sort of tactical implementation of that strategy has been very wanting, mediocre, not great. And the communication about the war has been very amateurish. And
Okay, do you read, sir, that the United States and Israel thought that Iran is weaker than they evaluated?
Probably for one reason, which you could call optical illusion. So basically, it's an optical illusion. Reading what? Reading, public opinion surveys. And in Iran, public opinion surveys are not conducted by Gallup poll or Sofres. They are conducted by, the Mossad and the CIA, etc. And so watching 2 months ago or 3 months ago, the mass demonstrations across Iran, watching, public opinion in Iran shifting against the regime, they must have said, listen, 85% or 90% of voters, quote unquote, in Iran are very hostile to the Khomeiniist regime. They are willing to die because we saw that in the past 2 months, 12,000 of them died in the street being, machine gunned by the Pasdaran and the gendarmerie. Therefore, when we hit Tehran, the next day, the people will rise up. And even more surprisingly, they believe that the Baluchi tribes in the east, the Azeri and Mazandarani tribes in the north, and the Kurds in the west, and the Arabs in Arabistan, in Muhammara, in the southwest, Khorramshahr, all these tribes, the Azeri, Mazandarani, Baluchi, Kurds would rise up and converge to Tehran, blah, blah, blah. It was all propaganda. They were drunk on their own, Kool-Aid. In real life, that's not how the tribes of Mazandaran and Balochistan operate. So I think they convinced themselves of a scenario which had zero chance of happening, sadly.